Good evening, Alpine Gulch. Yes, it's a nice night out for campfire. So I figured I'd just sit out here and have a campfire and have a little snack to eat. And I already had my coffee, so I'm just having a snack and watching the fire. Hello, Lulabelle. How you doing? I had my earbuds plugged in and my microphone was set down. Hello, Lulabelle. How you doing? I'm just sitting here. I got a bowl of frozen meatballs that I cooked up, and I'm wrapping them in tortillas and eating them. No, Alpine. I don't remember you ever saying that you lived in Israel for 3 years. Whereabouts in Israel? Near Tel Aviv. I've worked with a few different people that had lived in Israel. I think one gentleman lived there for 5 years. He originally came from Poland, and he moved to Chicago, and he works for a construction company that they travel around and they restore state houses. And that's where I work with him on a state house, restoring a state house. But he lived, I think, for 5 years, he said, in Israel. You know, I try to be cautious with things that I say, that I don't frame words improperly. I don't like what I see, what's going on, and my understandings of what's going on. And, you know, thank goodness I see a lot of people in Israel themselves that are not happy at all with the way that Netanyahu handles the government. And he's looking to create a war with every one of the neighboring countries. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Greater Israel Project, but that includes land of additional countries other than Palestine. It includes Jordan, it includes Lebanon, it includes Syria, it includes Iraq, and it includes part of Saudi Arabia. That the right wing government of Israel wants to take over all those countries. And it just makes me sick because Netanyahu doesn't go out and fight in the war and potentially risk getting killed. The soldiers, I look at them, they're doing their duty, for the most part, doing their duty. Some of them, they do additional wrongdoing, but, just like anybody from the United States, if they get in the military and they go out somewhere to a foreign country, they have to do their job. Yeah, it's surprising. There are lots of people that lived in Israel on YouTube. Yeah, I've been watching people in Israel, and I've watched a lot of people make videos that with the illegal settlers going to people's homes, the Palestinian homes, and cutting down their trees, damaging their equipment, attacking them if they come outside. And then if they dare go outside and fight them away, which as we know, they're not allowed to have guns outside. Palestinians are only allowed to have guns inside their house. So when they started this war on Gaza, an innocent civilian that owned a gun could not take their gun out of their house, not legally. And it's the double standard is disgusting. And I know there's a lot of people in Israel that don't agree with it. And they're standing up and they're looking to get Netanyahu out of office. But it's a terrible situation. I mean, can you believe that Netanyahu's trying to start a war with Iran? I mean, that's insanity. The only reason he does that is because he believes that the United States will do most of the fighting. This last attack that occurred, with the missile attacks, Iran showed the world, not just Israel, but the world, that they can hit any place that they want to in Israel and it can't be stopped. They shot 7 missiles at the base that's the most highly secured location on the planet. They shot 7 missiles at it, and 5 of them hit their target. And that was the slowest missiles or rockets that Iran possesses. The hypersonic rockets take 3 to 4 minutes from the time they launch it for them to land in Israel. There is no time for those to be stopped. The zealots on the border are crazy. I'm not sure which ones you mean by the zealots. You mean the people that the illegal settlers? Because, like, for example, that area that got attacked on October 7th, a lot of those were military people. And they themselves were left abandoned by their government and by the military. Yes, the settlers. Yeah, the settlers. I mean, I've seen them. I've seen them get video recorded, and the stuff that they were saying. I mean, they want to attack the civilians of Palestine and take the land. And it's only because they can get away with it because they're unarmed people they're going after. If they weren't unarmed, those settlers wouldn't be doing what they're doing. They wouldn't dare do it. You know, I've watched video after video where the settlers go to a family farm of a Palestinian. They cut their trees down, they damage their equipment, they chase the people into the house. When the Palestinians fight back at them, typically throwing stones because they don't have guns, the settlers go back and get guns, and they get the IDF, the military, to come with them. And I've literally seen them where they're prancing around like they're on a safari in Africa hunting an animal. And there'll be this one settler, and there'll be 2 to 4 IDF soldiers on either side of them with their automatic weapons, so that this one guy can go shoot the other guy where he went and invaded the guy's property and damaged his property. And they poison wells. I mean, people say, "Oh, you're making false accusations." No, it's not false accusations. This stuff has been proven time and time and time again. I mean, the United States got settled the same way, but that doesn't make it right. And the ones in the Knesset, their parliament, are bad. Yeah, I imagine so. If they're okay with what's going on and starting a war, which it could be very bad. It could be very bad for Israel, where Israel will be extinct. Literally extinct. And they don't care. Because to them, it's just power. It's a land grab for more power. But the people that financed it, I'm convinced, the people that finance this type of stuff, they don't even live there. They don't have the risk of any of the bad effects that could possibly happen. And some of even want the bad things to happen. The zealots ruin everything. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the way that I see you using the word zealots now, I would just use the word extremist. because they're they're not even so-called religious people. I mean, that's what they kind of called the religious people in the past that were extremists. They called them zealots. But these people, they can't even qualify as a religious person. Netanyahu is not a religious person, and his original family name isn't even a so-called Jewish sounding name. They're Zionists, and I don't know what you know about Zion, but Zion, the location in Israel, is called Tel Megiddo, and Tel Megiddo was an ancient place, and it's in a high place location, and that was a place where ritual sacrifice, blood sacrifice, was done in ancient times. And you know that it was human beings that they were sacrificing there because all human sacrifices took place at high places. Whenever they talk about the high places, that's where human sacrifice occurred. So when people talk about Zionists, they want to go back to the days of ancient Zion and blood sacrifice, and that's why they're so hell bent on building the third temple. It's all strange, the history of the Middle East, including politics. You want to know why it's so strange? Because it's a deception. It's not really logical, all the things that are occurring, because they do things just to make certain things happen. So the people that are involved in whatever mayhem's going on, it's just chaos. So it doesn't seem logical what the people are doing. Zealot equals Zionist. Okay. Did you know that the Zionists and the Zionist movement essentially started in Germany? And that the Zionists put out into the media March 24th, 1933, a declaration of war against Germany, and it's titled Judea Declares war on Germany. And it said that all Jewish people stand together and we must boycott Germany. And then they said that the Germans were doing atrocities to so-called Jewish people, which they hadn't yet done that. Literally, the Zionists outlined what was going to take place many years before it took place. And that's what people don't seem to understand. And that's what the new thing is now, is starting to say in the media that, anti-Zionist equals anti-Semitism. No, the Zionists are hiding behind the innocent people. They say that Hamas is using the Palestinians as human shields. Well, the Zionists have been using the Jewish people as human shields. And when I use the word Jewish, I mean the average Jewish person that goes to synagogue or temple and they pray to their God and they do certain things. They like their menorahs. They observe holidays and that kind of thing. They don't have any ill mind towards anybody. I study history and theology, etc. Yes, I study a lot. Uh, all the answers are there for people that want to look for them. If you listen to me very long, you know that I lean away from anything that sounds supernatural, because to me, those things aren't important. To me, what was actually occurring in ancient times and what was trying to happen interests me, because I even look at the language in an ancient manner where the Hebrew language came from Egypt. You know, what people call God, excuse me, or the Elohim, or El Elyon, those are all characters from Egypt. Those are all Egyptian agents. Those were human beings that were walking around in the land of Canaan, and they collected tax money from people. And before the Moses brought people from Egypt to go up and invade the land of Canaan, Egypt had already had control. But when Moses went up, the whole idea was to invade the area, to colonize it, to have a direct way of making money instead of the indirect taxation. Yeah, I agree with that all too. Oh, well, I'm glad. It's nice to know that. But for the life of me, I can't understand why that kind of information is unable to find its way into the mainstream population. Always wanted to talk to you about it, but not on those big channels. You are very smart and informed. Well, thank you very much. Well, it's nice to know that we're somewhat on the same path, and I'm sure you could teach me a thing or two. Oh, I see a raccoon. I think it's a raccoon. Maybe it's a little bit skinnier, but it's not a cat. It's not a skunk. Hope it's not a fisher cat. Poke it. No, it's too far away. It's over 100 feet from me in the neighbor's yard. I just walked by their house and walked underneath the gate. No, that that did not look like a creature I want to poke at. I know I got a big gopher over here on the other side of me. It's a possum. I don't know. It wasn't a possum. The tail was bushier than the way a possum's tail is. And it was whatever it was pretty good size too. It was bigger than a cat. I suppose it could have been some kind of fox. Okay, something with teeth. Yeah, I'm sure it had teeth. But those fisher cats, you poke at them, they can be vicious. And it sure is a nice night out. That's why I got this fire going and put this stream up to have it. So if anybody wanted to just watch a fire going on, I know it's not as good of an atmosphere as in real life, but there's something kind of nice and soothing about watching a fire. Not too familiar with fish cats. Well, if you were living out in a rural area and you had chickens and they weren't in a good enclosure, and fisher cats are like a larger form, like a weasel, and they'll do things like attack chickens if you have chickens, and they do things like just kill the chickens and not even eat them. They might tear them open and then just leave them and go away. They're just vicious little creatures. We got we got uh, we got some other animals around here that can be a problem. Like we got mountain lions here, and when I first moved to this area, I used to go out walking a lot. And the longest distance I walked was 18 miles in one day. And I had different directions that I would go to certain landmarks so that I could measure how far it was I was walking. But anyhow, I ended up a couple miles away from home as it turned dark, and there was no moon that night, so it was pitch black. Even on the road, there's no street lights out in that area. I was literally feeling the ground with my foot to see if I was still on the street or if I walked off the street. So anyhow, I walked for probably a half mile like that till I got to an area where there was light. The following day, I walked out in that same area. I went to my landmark and I turned around and some guy pulled over his vehicle. He said, "Do you want to ride?" I'm like, "No." I said, "I'm just out for a walk." He said, "Oh, I noticed you turned around." He said, "I figured you turned around because of the mountain lions." I'm like, "No, are there mountain lions around here?" He's like, "Yeah." He says last week, two mountain lions went up to somebody's car where they had stopped at the intersection, and the two mountain lions just ran over to the car. I was like, "No." I said, "I was out walking here in the pitch black. That could have been really bad." I'm in Wyoming. Oh, cool. I've never been to Wyoming. My ancestry is from Ohio, so I listen intently to what the woods are like when y'all talk about it. Yeah, I grew up in the city 5 miles north of Boston, but when I was in my early 20s, I bought 5 acres of land in rural Maine. And when I was 26, we moved up there. And first we rented a house on a lake, and then I ended up building a house. I like the rural community. I actually live in a city now, but it's a small city. It's like 5,000 people in this city. City I grew up in had 50,000. We were in Olmsted Falls. I'm not sure where that is. I don't know very much about Ohio. There's a few people that I've chatted with that live in Ohio and are familiar with Ohio, and it has quite the variety of places. Ridgeville, yeah, I'm still not familiar with it. Like where I grew up was all primarily cities. Uh, if you go north of there, 40 to 50 miles, there was rural locations. Like when I was a child growing up, we'd go camping up in that area, southeast of Cleveland, Butternut Ridge. So it's probably the same in that area too. We have Cleveland, that's a city, and then you have these other locations that are rural. But like with Massachusetts, if a person started heading west, the further west you go, the more rural it gets. Looks beautiful. I'm on the prairie, not many trees. I remember seeing one story. It wasn't Wyoming, it was Montana. But the story was saying that the Mexican cartels were taking over in Montana. I'm guessing what is meant by that is the fact that they have lots of money from the illegal drug sales that they do, that they could buy up lots of land up in Montana. The immigrants want to get far away from Mexico to blend in. Well, I'll tell you that there has always been as much of a problem with people crossing the northern border as the southern border. The northern border is nothing but a, a, a swath of 50-foot wide cut through the trees to show where the line is between the United States and Canada. and some locations even have roads that just go between the two countries. There's no customs area there or nothing. People can just drive back and forth. I remember a guy telling me a story on how he was working in one of the towns in the United States, and he was talking about how that there was this Canadian guy that was an evil man that would come across the border and assault people and rob them, and then go back across the border into Canada. But like when I lived in Maine, there's a lot of Canadians that live in Maine, and they're not all there legally. Up up north, they call people like that frogs because they jumped the border. But it's no different than any other nationality, you know, where people will come over here illegally to work and they work illegally and they don't pay taxes and they're probably even cheating their government back home with their wife or even girlfriend and children back there collecting welfare benefits while they're off in another country working under the table to stockpile up cash. Used to get them in Arizona. Can't believe I can't just buy cat antibiotics or even fish. Oh, I mean cross into Mexico from Arizona. Well, isn't that something that could be bought online? Cat antibiotics? I don't know anything about that kind of stuff, to tell you the truth. Oh, it's not legal in Wyoming to buy cat fish antibiotics. So I haven't found a website yet. So weird. Yeah, that does sound strange. I just found the AP channel so amazing what they say and bids. Excuse me. Yeah, some of the stuff, the people are out of control what they say, but it really troubles me to hear that some of the stuff that they say about the people of Palestine. I I don't particularly know anybody from Palestine, and I don't know if I would even get along with them. But to me, that doesn't matter. What's happening to those people should not be happening. Just like the things that are still happening to Native American groups in this country shouldn't be happening. And I had heard something to the effect that there was a decision made, I think it was a Supreme Court, about an oil pipeline going through Native American land. And I'm not sure what state it was. It might even have been Wyoming, but it might be the Dakotas. I'm not positive. But the court was ruling that the pipeline was going to have to be shut down because the company that put it through the land did not have permission from the landowners, which is the Native American tribe. And I agree. Those things should not be happening. When I was younger, I remember watching on television, and when I say younger, I mean in my 20s, maybe early 30s. And it occurred in Rhode Island where they were showing a state police officer on the front porch of a Native American tobacco store physically fighting with two Native Americans because this trooper wanted to close down the store because the tribe decided not to collect taxes for the state of Rhode Island because there was something that the state of Rhode Island was doing to the Native American tribe that the tribe felt they shouldn't have been doing it. So they're like, to hell with you, we're not going to collect the taxes on the tobacco. And the state trooper was having a physical altercation. So when I went to work and I was talking with people at work about it, I said, that's absolutely obscene. That's a sovereign nation. That tribe, that reservation is a sovereign nation. What the hell is the state police doing there having a physical altercation? Would they ever go into the country of Mexico and go have a physical altercation in the country of Mexico over a diplomatic situation? Because it's a diplomatic situation. My first best friend was a Palestinian. Well, do, do they still live where I'm not sure where exactly where it was that they were living. Did they live near Tel Aviv or did they live in Gaza or the West Bank? Or, oh my, that's another quagmire situation with the Native Americans. Yes, it is. and it still hasn't been resolved, and we're here at 2024. 2024, and that kind of crap's still happening. I mean, I meant my boyfriend. Okay, is your boyfriend, that boyfriend, still alive? Both were working as horse guides in stable and exercise. I don't know. I left in '83. Oh, that's quite a while ago. Heck, that's just over 20 years. I mean, 40 years. What am I saying? 20 years. 40 years. Why did you decide to leave in 1983? I'm an old military brat. Okay. My dad got restationed. Both my mom and dad were in the military, but before I was born. My dad was first a merchant marine, which a lot of people don't know much about the merchant marines, but they uh, they typically hauled equipment, but they hauled pretty much anything: equipment, food, and then as World War II came on, they even some of the ships were turned into troop carriers. And my dad started when he was 15 years old because his mother signed for him to join the Merchant Marines, even though he was too young to the Merchant Marine to be in the Merchant Marines. He lied about his age and his mother signed, so they said we don't care just as long as your mother signs. And then from there, he signed his draft card. He lied on his draft card, said he was 18 years old. He was a Merchant Marine, which he was a Merchant Marine, but he wasn't 18. And believe it or not, I found a video on the from the Discovery Channel. It was either a Discovery Channel or History Channel, one of those. And it showed where some troops were being brought into an area uh, It was Italy. Yeah, I think that one was Italy. But anyhow, it could have been my dad. One of the pictures actually literally showed a guy that had just got off a boat and sat down and leaned against the boat, and they got up pretty up close to him. And I seen pictures of my dad when he was young, and I was like, that could be my dad. That's amazing. And it not necessarily was. I know how people can look very similar. I mean, there's only so many basic looks that individuals have, but it could have been him. He told me he was in Italy and he was in France in World War II. And I found the documents that shows that he was in Belgium also, and he was back in the Merchant Marines in 1940s, 43, I think it was. I think it was 43. I don't know. I don't remember the exact year. We were there for the Egypt-Israel peace treaty. Yeah, well, we kind of know now that excuse me, that there was never any intention for Israel to make peace with the Palestinian people. And I'd said it for years that as soon as the government Israel feels that they can get away with it, that they're going to wipe out Gaza and the West Bank. I've been saying it for years. I'm like, you watch. As soon as they feel comfortable that they can get away with it, because the only reason they haven't done it in the past is because they couldn't get away with it. There'd be too many repercussions, and evidently the political climate is right, and the United States government just keeps shoveling the money to do what they're doing. Wow, to see your dad is so cool. Yeah, yes, it was. And like I said, I don't really know it was him, but it fits. The location fits. It looked like him. He never really wanted to talk about the war. I don't know if you've seen it. I was talking with the guys on one of the live streams that I had been asking about my dad and being in the service, and I guess my mom had asked that, or had mentioned that to my dad, and we had gone camping in New Hampshire, which was that location that I said was like between 40 and 50 miles from the city, and he brought me to go pick somebody up to come stay with us a couple of weeks, and that's when he brought up the conversation about the army and that he wasn't going to talk about it. And we were on our way to go pick up somebody. I don't know if it was the child or grandchild of somebody that he knew from the service, but I seen in his Merchant Marine service records that there was either two or three people labeled as being Hebrew, and one of the guys had been in the Merchant Marines and had been to sea since 1925. It was 20 years that he was in the Merchant Marines. So if he was Hebrew and came out of Israel in 1925, I mean he got out of there as things were getting ready to start escalating because they knew what was going on even in the 20s. I found my dad in books referring to the treaty, started a dialogue with the author who is a military historian. Oh, cool. Yeah, that's really cool. It's interesting finding family, especially that close, being your dad, being the family member, and being involved in historic things. His books in on the treaty and the Palestinians being left out was very interesting. Kissinger was so pissed. Oh, so what you're saying is the peace treaty you're talking about between Egypt and Israel, uh, both sides just totally ignored the Palestinian people. It was the first peace treaty, so it was fast and sloppy. Well, can I don't know if you've seen where Dr. Ralph Wilder went before the United Nations recently and made the argument that Israel is not a legitimate nation, that the British had no right to decide to allow this creation of a Jewish state. Now, I was always of the opinion that the 1947 partition plan, even though the Arab side or the Palestinians never signed it or agreed to it, Israel is still bound by the land boundaries that are listed in the petition plan because they did agree to it. But nonetheless, in the big scheme of things, the way Dr. Wilder presented it, Israel is illegitimate. They actually do not have a right to exist. There was no authority to allow the creation of Israel in the partition plan. Sadat wanted to do something grand in an Arab way. Oh, Anwar Sadat. The Brits really effed it all up, making up countries. Yes, exactly, exactly. But but Dr. Wilder, Ralph Wilder, he put in all the details in a legal fashion and presented it to the United Nations. Not that it's going to change anything. I mean, heck, there was a vote that just come up recently to accept the Palestinians as a member into the United Nations, and the United States vetoed it. And I don't know how you feel about it, but the way I feel about it, my country should ask the citizens what their choice is, what their decision is. These so called representatives that we have in our country, our senators, our congressmen, and even if you keep going down the chain and go to governors and whatever, none of these people have a right to be making the decisions that they make. And it's all outlined in the Declaration of Independence that it is the right of the people to alter or abolish any form of government. That means we as the people have the right to alter or abolish any law, which means to enact a law, to get rid of a law, to impeach somebody in political office. We have the right to be doing that. What the thing of it is that people do not understand is that all these things like impeachment trial, for example, that's happening against Joe Biden, all the people that are there should be just following what our decision are and actually enact it. We should be voting on all these things that get voted on, all these bills that happen, not just these little public hearings that they have. We literally should be asked to vote on all this stuff. NATO has always been BS from day one. Probably so. I don't know much about it. But I do know if I start raising my voice out here, I'm going to end up having a visitor. He's a heated topic. The cops will arrest you for getting too loud. Yeah, it's 11:30 where I'm at, and it's a relatively quiet place where I live, so it's not like there's a whole lot going on. Oh, it looks like you're gone. Are you still there, Alpine? Can you hear me? Are you still there, Alpine? Oh, okay. Yeah, I just got to be careful because when I get talking, I start getting loud. And, there's one thing getting loud in the house, there's another thing sitting out here in the yard getting loud. I mean, I have a deputy sheriff that lives close enough that he could hear me. Matter of fact, I got a lot of people in this neighborhood like that. No, actually, I live in a city. It's a small city. It's part of the Osage Reservation, but it's still a city. But there's there's a lot of different kinds of people that live in this general area. State police, county police. We have a congressman that has a place here. We got attorney general. So that there literally could be from the city cops all the way up to the Secret Service around here at any given time. I mean, not that it matters to me. It's just out here getting loud. They might come over and tell me to shut up. Shouldn't be out here getting loud. I'm in a tiny town, an old 1916 bank with police, everything across the street. Cool old West town. Oh, do you own the old bank building and made a home out of it? No, laughing out loud, I rent. Okay, so it was made into apartments or condos? I'll tell you what, I just moved from a bigger town in Wyoming to this one in January. I've looked at bank buildings to buy them in the past, and I missed out on one which was a credit union, which I didn't realize that they were going to be willing to sell it as cheap as they did, or I would have bought it. But a guy bought it for $35,000. It's a two-story building. It was connected to the pharmacy building next door, but it was originally a building that was part of the paper mill. So in the first floor level, where the credit union operated out of, there was a garage door where you could drive in, and then there was a automobile elevator in there. And I met the guy that bought it. I seen him when he was working on it and talked with him, and he invited me inside to see it. And he had a Porsche, and he'd drive his Porsche into the garage door and into the automobile elevator and take the elevator up and park his car in his living room in the elevator. You should see the old vault and boiler. Yeah, I'm sure it's pretty cool. I like that kind of stuff. I like all kinds of old things. I like commercial properties. I always wanted to get myself a commercial property, a big commercial property like 10,000 square feet, 15, 20, an old school or something like that, but it just never happened. And it probably never is going to happen at this point in my life, but that's okay. Some things are better left as dreams. I mean, I've been at this place since 2017 and kind of tinkering around with things and trying to decide how I wanted to do things. And I'd come up with what I thought was a great idea, which always meant that I had to wait longer and longer till I started doing things. So I finally get to the point of like, okay, I'm just going to do things and what it is that I can get done that falls in line with some of the ideas that I liked. I'm just going to do it and get it done instead of thinking that, well, I can do it better this way. And just, it just keeps getting put off and put off and put off. And that's why I've been out here working on my gardening and building up my garden beds and stuff. Like I started it last year in the front of the house where I wanted to have a tree cut down, and I couldn't get anybody to cut the darn tree down. Nobody would show up. So I ended up just leaving it where it is and saying, okay, well, I'll just do my garden beds a different way. And I'm out in the backyard section, which is actually 4 house lots together. So I'm in the back 2 house lots here. And I've been working on the garden area out here. The last time I went live, I had showed this back area, and it doesn't look like a real lot is done, but I got over 40 feet of 2 foot wide garden bed done, and I got another area that I've been working on in progress, and then I got another 20 feet where I got it done and planted, which I'm going to show it in the beginning of May what I got, where I'm at. Time slips away, then it's just about stay alive. Yeah, yeah. Some sometimes a person just gonna say, "Well, I'm not gonna get to do those things." Yeah, survival first. I'll tell you what. When COVID come around, I had to work through that whole stuff, that whole situation, and we weren't even told, other than from an employee that was working at the building, that there were a couple people that were working in the office building. And this is an office building that also had a congressman's office in it. Uh, and they were coming to work with COVID the whole time. And we got told later on. But we worked through the whole time. But I guess the point I was going to make was going to the stores when the food on the shelves was so depleted in the stores. I was like, I'm glad that I had stockpiles of canned goods, for example. So I didn't have to buy vegetables or raviolis or soup or any of that stuff. If I did, I would have been shit out of luck because the stores were stripped on that stuff. but I was in there getting other things. I'm like, oh my God, I'm glad. I'm really glad that I had things stockpiled in the house. And I like to. That's the way I like to live. I'm not gonna. I, I'm not gonna be eating the fanciest meals, but I'm gonna be eating when other people are worrying where they're gonna go buy a can of soup from. I got prolific sweet peppers and chives in the windows all year long. Cool. I used to grow chives. I don't have any chives here, but I grew them up north. My sweet peppers didn't germinate very well. I only got I think I got four of them out of 2 dozen. Well, there was two trays that held 12 each, but I only got like 4 or 5 plants coming out of them. They didn't do well at all. They're growing moss, algae or moss on the top of the potting soil. And that was the Miracle Grow potting soil. So I switched over and started using cocoa core. I had picked my wheat. Just kidding, but I couldn't, damn it. I had picked my wheat. I don't know what you're saying. Oh, hand picked. Yeah, I never wanted to go quite that far, you know. And I'm not saying it because what I'm about to say, I'm not saying it because I agree with the person, other than, not everybody is wrong about everything they say. Now, I don't know if you ever read the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx. Now, I don't agree with Karl Marx other than the way he identified some of the things in his writing, such as the bourgeois class versus the proletariat. I mean, those things are real. Uh, the fact that mechanization would get so good that feeding the people would be much easier and could be done with a lot less people and a lot more cost effective. We've been there for many, many years to that point. So I agree with him with those things, and people don't properly take advantage of it. The way the advertising and marketing works, people they're literally under a spell on the kind of stuff that they buy to eat, for crying out loud. They always have to have something better. They always have to have something different. They always have to have something new. Like, oh, they got to have this new kind of food and it's so exotic. And they always think on that lines. Uh, but you get people that come here from other countries and say, "Oh my God, we can get tons of rice and beans all we want, and this is what we would live on back home. This is awesome." And people don't look at it that way around here. I mean, I buy beans at the market that now they cost $2 a pound, but for many years they cost $1 a pound for a bag of dry beans that could be planted in the ground. That's what I planted last year here for my green beans. I planted what's called Great Northern beans, Great White Northern beans, something like that. But those grow green beans, and the black beans grow yellow beans. But it's very cheap. Now, seed companies don't like us doing that, but too bad. But I mean, that's the way to feed people, is through smart techniques like that. I mean, it's very simplistic, but it's like, okay, for $2, you can have 1 pound of seed, and I don't know, grow 100 pounds worth of beans out of it. He was just the first to write about, not some huge philosophic revelation. Absolutely, absolutely. The thing of it is, he was of the assumption that it was government that should be in charge of all this shit. Now, my opinion is, seen as the way the United States is set up, where it's the right of the people to alter or abolish any form of government, which means we make the laws, which means we make the laws that regulate the business. I mean, it doesn't work that way today, but that's the way it's supposed to work. We essentially would be doing that because governments are easily corrupted, and they're corrupted by the businesses that make the money. So in that sense, we would be in really good shape if the people got themselves together and said, "Hey, wait a minute, we're supposed to be voting on all this stuff and running the show." Instead, they're arguing, and the businesses are bribing the so-called representatives, and they say, "Oh, we got to deregulate stuff so that we can make things happen." Blah 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 blah. And in the meantime, it's the same people that continually ruin the economy so that they can reap the benefits of buying stuff cheap as people lose everything. I mean, to them it's a game. To me, that's people's lives. A republic nation. See, that's the thing. Our republic is supposed to be a democratic republic, and that's what's identified in the Declaration of Independence, meaning that it's the right of the people to alter or abolish any form of government. That means that's what makes it democratic. Now, if you read about a republic government in a book that's called Res Republica, and Res Republica was written by Cicero, and it talks about, in Cicero's opinion, that basically that democracy was mob rule. Now, democracy in our respect would not be mob rule, because people say mob, well, that means a hostile gang. Well, no. I mean, if you have orderly voting, it's just a decision of the people. But we have never had that happen. And I understand when the country gets started, the founding fathers had to deal with, how do we finance what it is that we're doing? How do we keep the businesses, stop them from taking this whole situation over? Well, the only way to do that is word things in such a way that they can take advantage of it and basically continue business as usual. And they did that. But the writings that were left behind, the Declaration of Independence and then the Constitution, if they're properly applied, are a total game changer. Self-governed. Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's that's the right words. But people don't understand it. I can't. And our country has a lot of very highly intelligent people, but they can't get this part right. I don't believe it. I think they're afraid to. They're either afraid of losing what they have, or they're just afraid of change. A small group of people equals a mob. Yeah, and that's not democracy. And see, that's the thing. Even the people have to go by the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, even though the people can change the Constitution. But the part, for example, in the Declaration of Independence about all men are created equal, that certainly was not used in the beginning of this country. It took 100 years to even start dealing with slavery, and it wasn't fully dealt with. And it took another 100 years to change from minority people to be not looked at as second class citizens, and for women to get the right to vote. That's a long damn time considering, that it's pretty self evident all men created equal what that means. But people chose to ignore the reality of it. Well, it's getting to be midnight, and I think I'm going to have to head inside. My battery's getting a little low, anyhow. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and I'll chat with you another time, I guess. I'm sure I'll see you around. I'll recognize your name, and you have a good night. Okay, you're welcome, and thank you very much for being here. I enjoyed this time. Good night.